Start. Orang pun jemput lah ya. Jangan segan-segan. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Very good morning to everyone that is present today. I can see that we have our VIPs all set for the live webinar. Very good to see you guys. Alhamdulillah. So again, barakah insyaAllah for our event program today. Let's start with Kitab. Okay, we are very fortunate today to be able to sit down and listen to our very dear colleagues talking about very important topic, and it seems to be gaining interest this lately. Yeah. So we have a live webinar, the webinar today entitled Genetic Evolution and the Islamic Theology of Creation. Is there any contradictions? So without further ado, I would like to invite Professor Dr. Samsul Rahman of COM, now functioning or serving as Deputy Campus Director, Academic Support Services at OCD. So please welcome, Prof.
Okay.
Let us hear your remarks and insight to the topic.
Thank you very much, Anil, as our moderator today. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi washabihi ajma'in. I would like to thanks to the organizing committee for giving me this opportunity. This is a special IWIN. This is number 21. So the organizer has been doing a great effort. Keep on doing this and istiqamah. So congratulations to the organizing committee, and thanks to the organizing crew for giving me another chance to give very short remark. It's not that long. I don't want to steal the spotlight. And the topic is very interesting, genetic evolution and the teaching of Islam. Any contradiction? When you talk about genetic evolution, for sure we will remember special theory by Charles Darwin. So one of his statement, he said that species change over time and give rise to a new species and share a common ancestor. So his remark as if humankind actually the origin from animal, from monkey. And then if you look at from the Islamic teaching, Al-Quran, Allah said another perspective. Man actually from clay, from tanah. Our Prophet Adam AS from tanah. So this is contradiction already. This is contradiction. And then another perspective, if you see my hobby, LGBT, they also claim they have a genetic disorder. That's why intersex included in LGBTIQ. But from Islam, Surah An-Nam, verse 54 to 56. Do you indeed approach men with desire instead of women, whether you are a people behaving ignorantly? So Al-Quran said LGBT basically nothing to do with genetic or DNA, but basically just desire. And later on, the Western scientists, they also discovered what Al-Quran already mentioned 1,400 years ago. So this is another contradiction. So this is very interesting, very interesting topic. And that's why Al-Quran is, I must say, is our kitab, our special kitab which can contradict the science. However, the problem is if we tell this to our non-Muslim colleague, maybe they, and for sure they will disagree. And that's why we need science. We need science. And let's say if we rely too much on science, I'm afraid we become atheists. We don't believe in gods. So I think this is another angle that I hope our speaker, I'm sure Prof. Razak, Prof. Muhammad, Prof. Fitri will discuss this thoroughly. And hopefully all of us, the audience, will learn a lot. And we hope this IWIN will continue again and again to touch more and more relevant issue. So with that, thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So back to you, MC. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. So let's introduce the moderator and the panels for today. We have moderator, Assistant Professor Dr. Fitri Yusof. Oh, sorry, I got it wrong. This is Assistant Professor Dr. Muhammad Yusof Muhammad from CAS as the moderator. I apologize for my mistake. And then we have two panels. Yeah. One is Assistant Professor Dr. Fitri Yusof from Marine Department, yeah, Kuliah of Science, as well as Professor Dr. Hashi from Biotech Department, Kuliah of Science. So I pass it on to you, Muhammad Yusof, to take over the session.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa ahlul uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Respected Chairperson, Dr. Anil, our blessed and respected speakers, Dr. Muhammad Fitri and Professor Abdul Razak Abdullahi, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, our Deputy Director just now, Professor Dr. Samsul. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. May peace, blessing, and mercy of Allah be upon all of us today. We are very blessed and we are very honored to have all of you here online with us in this Zoom platform as well as in YouTube platform. So welcome again for the IUM workshop on Islamization and Integration of Human Knowledge, IWIN 21. This is already 21 session. I didn't notice about it. So today the topic is very special. We are addressing the issue of genetic evolution and the teaching of Islam. Any contradictions? And with us, we have prominent speakers. Before I introduce both of the speakers, let me introduce the first speaker, which is none other than Dr. Muhammad Fitri Yusof. He's from Kuliah of Science. He received his PhD in fish genetics and breeding from Graduate School of Agriculture, Tohoku. I hope I pronounce it correctly. University. And previously, he received his bachelor's in genetics from National University of Malaysia in 2008 and master's in animal science from UPM in 2012. So his current research is more on molecular and aquatic organism breeding for freshwater fish and etc. So today we are talking about the issue of genetic evolution. We try to understand the issue of genetics. Before that, welcome Dr. Fitri. How are you, Dr. Fitri?
Assalamualaikum. Fine, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. So are you ready today?
Yes, inshallah.
Alhamdulillah. So a lot of things rise from the issue of genetics, right? We are talking about how does a particular species become another species? Is there any addition to our genes? And when we are talking about genes here, we're not talking about gene Islam or gene kafir. It's different. You know, for those who are new, we are talking about a blueprint of ourselves. We're not talking a genetic code, that each one of us has a unique and genetic code. So before I explain too much about this thing, I'm not going to take the time of Dr. Fitri. So I just want to quote a particular statement from a New Scientist newsletter dated 24th March 2009. It stated that over hundreds of millions of years, a single gene can give rise not just to one gene, but to hundreds via gene duplication. We humans have around 400 genes coding for smell receptors, for instance, all of which derive from two original genes in a very early fish living around 450 million years ago. As if we are starting from a single organism, then due to the selection, operation, etc., our genes are adding up and we become a complex creation. Is implied in that particular statement. So based on this, we hope that Dr. Fitri can enlighten us on the issue of genetics, the basics, up to the formation of species, especially for humans. So without further ado, let us invite Dr. Fitri. You may share screen if you want.
Okay.
Yeah. Please welcome.
Thank you very much. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah alamin. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Rabbi zidni ilman warzuqni fahman. Amin. So inshallah, assalamualaikum and good morning everybody. My name is Fitri. So a little bit about myself. I'm degree, master and PhD in genetics. So master and PhD on fish genetics. So degree tu of course lah we cover all. And today I would like to thank you iWin teams for inviting me to share and discuss. And today it's not only me delivering the knowledge. I think all of us will share a little bit of information that we have and discuss to arrange the jigsaw puzzle for us to get a better understandings. So genetic evolutions and Islamic theology of creation. So I would like to share with you about the basis of how we derive the evolution theory. So of course we go to the Darwinism by Charles Darwin, the theory of evolution by natural selection. So during 18th century, he wrote a book, Origin of Species. And then he postulated that how organisms evolve over generations through the inheritance of physical or behavioral traits. So bear in mind that he observed on morphological of certain species of finches, birds lah, Darwin's fish. So when he saw there are differences in their beak morphology, so he postulated that this came because their adaptations to the what kind of the food they have took in their particular habitat. Again, so the Darwin finch is the one that became the pinpoint or the platform for him to postulate the evolution theory. So that is the pinnacle. Means when we talk about morphology, is a phenotype. Morphology means that things that we can observe by our naked eyes, the physiology of the organism. So physiology of the organism is the output from the genetics and also from the environment and also from the epistasis, means the interaction between genetics and environment. That's what we call epistasis. So when we call about evolutions, there are normally three subtopics in evolution. One is microevolution, macro, and speciation. So I will go through microevolution, macroevolution, and speciation because they are the pinnacles of evolution. And then what caused the evolutions or the macroevolution? What caused the changes in the genetics? So changes in genetics, there's several criteria that cause the changes in genetics. One is the genome itself, they have mutations. And then second, what Darwin postulated is natural selection. And then the genetic drift. And lastly, I will talk about cause of mutation. So because we want to talk about genetics more, we want to talk about the mutations more compared to natural selection and genetic drift. So let me go to the DNA variation in genes. So because as we can see, human, we are a single species. We share the same species. We are all same species, but we have difference in our morphology, and we also have difference in our genotype. So when we talk about morphology, normally scientists or geneticists, they will see it phenotype because that is the output from their gene coding. So when we talk about the gene itself, we talk about genotype. We call it genotype. So genotype is the code or barcode that bring the information to translate it into phenotype. So the differences in our genes or in our genetic our genotype is due to because one, we inherit from our parents, paternal, father, and also maternal. And then during from each individual, means from our father and mother, because we know we have cell autosome. Autosome is a normal cell body, and also we have sex cell. Right? We have sperm and also ovum. So during in our sex cell, they will undergo the meiosis, meiosis 1 and meiosis 2. So during meiosis 1, how we got the DNA variations means we inherit some. If you can see, some of us we inherit several phenotype or several morphology that a little bit similar from our maternal, maybe from our mother or from our maternal families, yeah, like our grandfather or our uncles or aunties from her side. And also a little bit of morphology that we share, or we have similarities from our father's side, from he himself or from his family, right? That is what we call DNA recombinations lah. We might share some similarities, but sometimes there is no resemblance at all between the father side and also from the mother side. So one of it is the DNA recombination during meiosis 1. So we have changes because overlapping of chromatids during meiosis 1. So, but I don't want to talk about that so much about it, but I want to focus more on the mutation. So mutations normally is happening in the DNA double helix in our DNA strand when there are changes of the base pair. So the simplest or the simplest form of DNA is the 4 base lah, for the 4 nucleotides: ATCG, adenine, guanine, cytosine, and thymine. So these 4 changes, the combination is the basis of the coding for our genotype. Wait, I couldn't see the chat. Ada soalan? I don't know. Okay.
It's okay.
So,
Dr. Fitri.
Okay. So mutations, mutations. What cause mutation? Mutation is the changes of the base. As you can see, mutation is the changes in the base pair in our DNA sequence. So let's say from the yellow one is guanine pair with thymine, guanine pair with thymine, and then there are some issues happen, some problems or pressure happen that cause the changes in their I'll use laser pointer. So that causes either the breakdown or changes of the combinations or deletion or insertion. I will tell more about this later. So as I said, mutation is the change in the nucleotide sequence of a short region of a genome, in the genome. And a lot of mutations are point mutations that replace one nucleotide with others. So it means that there are base substitution. We change from G to C, A to G, like that. While the others are insertion and deletion lah. When we insert another more base or we delete another base. So like the Yusuf said in the magazines, from 2 genes up to until several hundred genes. That is what we call is insertion mutation. So what are the results from the mutations? Normally, there are errors in DNA replications. Means like from 100 base pair, if you insert, you will got 101 and you got another addition of the base pair. And also some mutation, they cause damaging effect. Some, they are cause nothing. It's just nonsense or missense mutation lah. Means they just add up, but they didn't code for anything. Depend on which. Hello, yes.
Okay.
Okay. So damaging effect of mutations such as so it didn't code for anything. So the mutations can be caused by several factors. One is the radiation. We know the UV exposure to UV can cause mutations in our skin cells, cause the cancer, and then exposure to certain radiation, wavelength of radiations can cause problems in our bone or in our bodies. And also chemicals, certain chemicals also cause the mutations, and also some infectious agents. So these are types of mutation that happen in organism. In organism in general, so scientists, we try to put into groups or characterize the mutations. Deletions mean you delete a portion of DNA sequence. So if in the chromosome it happened deletion, so it will be shortened lah. And then duplications mean double the copy of the certain coding sequence of the genome. Inversions mean you inverted lah. The reading will be inverted from left to right, from right to left, or up down. Insertion, addition of the new, normally this one, addition of the new sequence gene into the new region. And then translocations mean they exchange. Okay, so far clear? Is that okay? Or do we need questions or anything? So I just proceed, right?
Proceed, yes.
Okay. Okay. So when mutation happen in our cell, in our nucleus, normally the cell itself, they have the repair mechanism, because some mutations may lead to the harmful result. So there are several pathway or several methods or techniques that the DNA itself and the cell itself how to cope with the mutation. So they will, base excision means they will cut down the additional copy of the mutation. Same goes with nucleotide excision repair, mismatch, the inverted ataupun the translocation. So with the repair back the mismatch. So this means that the cell itself, they have coding to repair if any error happened during the replication of our DNA copy. Normally during cell division, right? We learn in our high school, there is cell division during mitosis and also during meiosis. So we know about the point of the mutation happen in cell, what are the cause generally, and how DNA cope with the repair, and how the cell cope with the repair. And then we wanted to know if mutation happen, what are normally the problems arise from the mutation in human. So they group into three area lah. One is when the mutation happen and it change or alter your chromosome, either chromosome content or the chromosome number itself. As such an example, human, we have 23 pairs of chromosome. So when there are addition of extra one chromosome, like Down syndrome, trisomy at 21 chromosome. So that's the cause lah, means you have additional one extra chromosome at the chromosome number 21. So it also occur in our sex chromosome number 23, such as Klinefelter and Turner syndrome. Klinefelter means you have another male have another extra X chromosome in their sex chromosome. So and Turner in women means that you just have only single chromosome, single X chromosome. So you lost another X chromosome. So this cause the mutation at chromosome level that cause the genetic disorders lah. And then complex. When complex means it's not only caused by the genetics, it caused by our lifestyle, chemical exposure to our what we have been exposed to the outer world, and then lifestyle lah, the diet, and then our tobacco or alcohol consumption. So Alzheimer, arthritis, cancer, diabetes are some of the examples caused by the combinations of genetic defect caused by mutation and also the lifestyle or the environmental factor. And then lastly is the single gene. It's monogenic lah, just single gene causing the problems, the genetic disease or genetic disorders. So such as sickle cell disease and also muscular dystrophy. So I believe everybody know about sickle cell and also normal red blood cell. So we go, that is mutation. So we understand mutation happen in the genome, in the genotype. And then we want to know how does it cause the differences and how does it lead to the evolutions. So I love this kind of example. We wanted to understand first. So let's say in a population we have the green genes, or we have a population of beetles, and then there are some variation, a new phenotype in the beetles. Like in this case, our beetles all are the brown color, but we sometimes we got the new color, the green color. So the evolution occur when there are one is mutation lah. Mutation means that suddenly we got a new phenotype due to difference of a new combination of genotype. Secondly is the new introduction, migration or the gene flow. Means we have two distinct populations of animals or organism, and then totally different. And then there are the insertion or migration between the populations lah. So they migrate from the brown to the green, or from the green to the brown. The microevolution, okay, the genetic drift means that there are the genetic drift or the bottleneck effect lah, means there are some sort of catastrophe, natural disaster or some things that cause a lot of death of an individual that carrying that particular genome, and the surviving genes or the surviving organism only carried a different genotype or genome. That in these examples, more brown colored beetles survive from the catastrophe. So that is what we call the genetic drift that caused the microevolutions. And then lastly is the natural selection. Natural selection is the most what people call easiest or to understand lah, means naturally selected by the predator or by the consumer. So like in this case, let's say the green colored beetles are more easy to distinct, or are more distinct, more easy to caught by the birds, and then so they are easily to be preyed upon compared to the brown beetle that have camouflage. So the brown beetle can survive, and over a series of over several generations, the genotype for brown colored will increase lah, and vice versa. So in this case, over the time, after 1 year, let's say 80% from the green genes in the population, so over the times, because they have been preyed by the birds, so over the time, the allele frequency or the genotype frequency in the population will reduce. So the allele frequency for brown colored will increase. So what are the examples in real life? This is in North America. The sparrow lah, house sparrow, burung pipit tu, they were introduced to North America during 1850s. So they have different adaptations due to different locations. So those who are residing at the northern part, morphologically they are bigger because the northern is more colder, so they need to consume reserve more energy. So they large, they are become bigger lah, compared to the small to the south region. They are not so cold, so the body is small. So this what we call the scientists postulate that cold weather in the north may select for large-bodied birds because they can tolerate more cold weather. So that is what we call for microevolutions. I mean the small changes in the population in the species. So when we talk about species, normally it is defined as a group of individuals that can interbred in nature. So means that they can interbred, but they didn't necessarily have the same phenotype. Means that they didn't necessarily have the same exactly 100% features. So like in this case, in spider lah, basically for us human also, we don't have the same features. Means all of us have different face, unless we are kembar seiras kan, unless we are twins. So that is the definition of species in general. However, there are some discussions because several species can interbred, produce hybrid. So horse with donkey, you produce mule. And then in fishes, we have a lot of a lot of hybrid we can do, although there are differences between species and also between chromosome number. So, but generally, we consider species when they have distinct features and they can interbred within among themselves. But what caused this speciation? As I said before, the microevolution will cause can cause the speciation. So one of it is different environmental conditions that cause for the adaptations in a plant or animals, because the plants are more simple organism compared to us human or animals lah. So when you are isolated geographically, so you may develop into different adaptations. So the gene will certain genes will genotype, the genotype, the combination of our gene will express the phenotype will be expressed to for that particular environment. So you will develop into different features, and then you have to know that species is the definition by scientists. Means that we define the species. So we consider that as a different or single species. It's up to the taxonomists or scientists that work on the species lah. Taxonomists. You want to put this one is under the same species or different species. Okay. So in this case, this kind of iris flower, they develop distinct coloration and then the scientists separate them into 4 distinct species, and then because they have adaptations towards 4 different regions and there are no overlapping between the species lah. So another one is the reduction of gene flow. So when the new species develop, it's not like you play Pokemon or something, you enough time you evolve from small to big. No, it's not like that. It's over the time you have distinct clear morphology or phenotype, and then we observe, and then we say, okay, this is totally different from the another species, so we make it into a new species. We declare or we describe it into a new species. So imagine a situation in which a population extends over a broad geographic range. So it means that one population is cover the whole large geography, and mating throughout the population is not random. So when you are mating, it's not random. They have specific preferences in that particular populations. So over many generations, there will be some distinct features. So the green will go with the green, the blue will go with the blue. So that is what we call reducing the gene flow. Means that you become specified lah. So you become distinct, or you group you yourself, because we have specific preferences. So they will go develop into specific group. Okay, the third one is the reproductive isolation. When they are separated geographically, environment may impose an external barrier to reproduction, such as river or mountain range, between 2 incipient species. Means they are originated from single species and then separated into 2 different isolated regions. No mixing between the 2 populations. And then over the time, they will develop into 2 distinct morphology, because due to the adaptation and also for the mixing lah, for the mating. So as an example, in real life, different species of bowerbird construct elaborate bowers and decorate them with different color. So these are 2 species of birds, bowerbirds. So the left one is the blue colored lah. So the blue colored, they have tendency to decorate their nest with the blue colored things. Blue objects lah. On the right side is the McGregor bowerbird. Normally they just use tower for their nest and decorate with a charcoal. So evolutionary changes in mating rituals such as bow construction can contribute to speciation because they have specific preferences to their nest. So it will also cause to the selection lah. And then lastly is about the macroevolution. So I think the problems or the contradiction or the issues raised is the macroevolutions. Normal people agree with the microevolution because it's small, it's within the population, and is can be accepted lah. It's not so what we call so contrast. So the macroevolution is evolution on the grand scale. What we see when we look at the history. Normally, all the cause of evolution, mutation, the gene flow, genetic drift, and natural selection, etc., plus a billion years, that will cause the macroevolutions. So the beetles, from the kingdom of insects, so they have a phylum of or subgroup of beetles. So that is the macroevolutions. Means when we said Prof. Shamsul said, human and the Darwin, not the Darwin lah, the evolutionists, they normally said that human and chimpanzee, we share the same ancestor. It's not that we derive from the chimpanzee or monkeys, but we share the same ancestor. So that is macroevolutions, what we are talking or that are contrasting with. People say it contrasts with the Islamic belief. So, but I think that we will discuss after this lah. So, but for this session, I will only share until macroevolutions, and I think the Yusuf, is that okay, or can I proceed, or we will go to the next session?
Are you completing, or you still have more slides to discuss?
I have.
You can proceed, inshallah, another 10 minutes, inshallah, no issue.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now we go to the burning questions about human and chimpanzee, when the genetic studies show that they have 98.8 or 99% similarity, or when there are several studies that focusing on similarities between chimpanzee and humans, the similarity in their genetics. So these are the burning questions because I think most of us, I don't know whether we believe it or not, but this what this study been done, and these are the results. So 98.8 or 99% similarity, but if we include insertion and deletion in the genotype, is reduced to 96 similarity. Okay, what is about the similarities in human and chimpanzee? So the study that showed 98.8 or 99 similarities ni, first we talk about similarities, then we talk about the differences. Okay, so it's focusing on the every gene sequence in the human, the genome, the whole genome sequence of the human, and then only 96. But if we include the insertion and deletion in the genome, so the similarity reduced to 96%. So at protein level, when we code the genome is the coding. So when we convert it into protein, so only 29% of the genes code for the same amino acid sequence lah, in chimpanzee and human. So I want us to understand that when we heard about the similarity, most of us become clinch or totally rejected it because we couldn't accept it. So but I want us to know the similarities is 99%. It didn't represent that we should have 99% similar morphology with chimpanzee. It's just we share the same. We have this 99% similarities of genetic, but morphologically we are different. So when we are compared the similarities in human, between human and chimpanzee, it's 10 times, of course, in human to human, we are 100% similarities, right? But in human and chimpanzee, human and chimpanzee similarities is 10 times larger than the similarities between us, human to human. So if human to human, you see that we have a lot of populations. We have Malay, and then the Aryan, and then the Caucasians. So it's totally different. Means you can phenotypically, morphologically, you can see the differences. The eye color, the skin color, yes, the coloration is different, and then the morphology of the morphological features of the face. So it's totally different. But chimpanzee and human is 10 times different than that. And compared to mouse, human to mouse is 600 times compared to our differences between us, human to human. So I want to focus. Don't be too scared, or don't be too paranoid with when people say we share 99% of similarities. Okay, why? Okay, this is the study lah. The study of normally historically 1975 they study using the protein homologue and also nucleic acid, and then over the time when technological advance in genetic, we study using the genome sequence. So during 2005 that we realized that we share the 98.8% of similarity between human and chimpanzee. And when we include the insertion and deletion, bear in mind that in our genotype, not all are coding for protein. Some are non-coding region. Non-coding region means that it didn't code for anything. It's just there. We don't know why Allah put there. So, but this normally they have other functions lah. They have other functions. So, okay, I want to pinpoint this one. The extra 1.2% differences between human and chimpanzee, it equals to 35 million differences, because we have more than 1,100 different genes in X chromosome only. So the X chromosomes in human and chimpanzee, only that in that particular chromosome, we already have 1,100 genes that are different from the chimpanzee. And bear in mind that we Homo sapiens is 46. We have 46 chromosome, 23 pairs. But in bonobo or the chimpanzee or the monkey family, panthroglypes, gorilla, Congo pygmies is around 10. So they all have 48 chromosome. 48 means 24 pairs of chromosome. They have another one extra pair of chromosome. So it's totally different. So to me, you have to understand that the 1% differences is already huge. Okay, now we go to the arguments lah. The arguments. So the similarity and the differences we already see, and then the arguments in the 98.8% and the 9% the similarities too. So certain, not so many, but certain scientists, they argue high degree of functional similarity does not mean that we share the same common ancestry. So we have to be clear on this. Darwin, he postulated that we share the same ancestor, not we are origin from monkey. So means that the monkey, means how to say, not we are originate from the monkey, but we share the same ancestor, but we don't know who are the ancestors. Okay. So and another this so one, if we have a lot of similarity, do we have the same ancestor? Yeah, because the similarity is functional similarity, as I said, but in genetics there are certain regions that we call non-coding regions. When we there are some insertion and there are some deletion that when we include, it will reduce the similarity to 96%. So another question arises: if similarity drop from 98% to 96%, should we still associate that we have the same ancestor, or we didn't have the same ancestor? So like as an example, we macam mana? Okay, as an example, like in human and mouse, why mouse is the best, one of the best organism to study lah by the medical scientists, pharmacists, Dr. Yusuf, everything. They love using mouse because they share they genetically we have 85% identical, and some genes are 99% identical. So depend on the regions. So if we have 99% identical gene at particular region, do we have the same ancestry with mouse lah? So the regions are evolutionary conserved because they are required for function. And as we know, when certain genes that code for functions, like for limbs or for the Yusuf said for smells, so it will be conserved. Because if it's not conserved over the time, you will lose that gene and you will lose that kind of morphology or functions. So in contrast, non-coding regions are much less similar. So much less similar because it will evolve or change lah. Okay, the second argument or the second question is genetic similarity by percentage is a good measure of overall human gene similarity. So we have to be, I want to put us in neutral because we want to observe, right? We have to observe all the information and then we get the better understanding. So when we observe this information, we have to know that the study of human and chimp similarity is not objectively to deny or not. It's not religious lah. It's not religious. First of all, it's not to say that human is not from Adam or we are from monkey or everything. It's just they just want to observe the similarities. That is the objective of the study. That is one. Second, after in a lot of studies, when they observe there's more than 90% of similarity between human and chimpanzee, most of the question arise is not look on the similarities, but why we only have 1% differences, 1% differences, but we are so different from chimpanzee. So they want to observe that and want to know what are the genes that code for the differences in between human and chimpanzee. So in the second argument, genetic similarity by percentage, is that a good measure of overall human chimp similarity? Because we have physiological and anatomical differences, development of brain, muscular, diet, locomotion, structure, semua lah. So and also different gene expression. So these are the differences lah. So and another argument is apart from the theory or the postulations, the proof that come from the skeleton is not enough to prove, because when you excavated some area, you couldn't get a total 100% complete skeleton to develop the organism lah. So it's just based on postulations and the drawing or the illustrations. So that is also another arguments lah. So that's my sharing today, this morning. So I think I end this session first, and then I return back to the Yusuf lah, inshallah. If you have any
thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fitri, for a very insightful presentation. In brief, we have learned about what is speciation, what is the mechanism of evolution, microevolution and macroevolution, and the issue of similarities. Yeah, there's a lot of differences. We are talking about 3.5 million base pairs of our genome, like more than 7 billion nucleotides, and even 2% differences are huge, right? And of course, it's a good amount of information there. There are questions coming out, going to discuss later on with Dr. Fitri. So the basic idea is that just because we have the similar, almost similar genes, it suggests to us that we are having a common creator does not necessarily means we are having a common, a common ancestry. It can be yes, it can be no. We just we can discuss later on. Now, before I put up so many questions after this, let us proceed first. Let us proceed first to our respected Dr. Hashi. Dr. Professor Hashi, are you there?
Yeah, I'm there. I'm listening.
MashaAllah, Professor Hashi.
Yeah, I'm listening. Yes.
Yeah, how are you, Prof? Alhamdulillah.
Good. Alhamdulillah, I'm doing good.
Yeah, okay. Before we proceed further, let me introduce you a little bit. Professor Hashi Abdullah Hashi is currently a professor in Department of Biotechnology. So we have two prominent speakers from Kuliah of Science today, and his area of specialization in human sciences, theology, and comparative religion in bioethics. More than 15 years of experience. But Prof. Hashi, if I try to narrate your biography, it'll take half an hour. So I make it very short and sweet. Okay, just now we talk about more information about science. How do we understand evolution mechanism, especially in terms of genetics? Now we want to a little bit look at a different perspective, especially when we talk about the creation. What does the Quran and Hadith, or what about the text that mentioned about the creation of our human? And maybe you can narrate to us as well the creation of Adam and Eve. Then later on, we're going to see the issues pertaining to genetic evolution. So the floor is yours, Dr. Hashi. Yeah, I think Professor Hashi, are you there?
I think it's hang.
Okay, let us allow some time for him to come back.
Yes, Dr. Yusuf, I think you are back now. Yes.
Oh, okay, alhamdulillah. Just a glitch to to
Yes.
excite the presentation. Yeah, you can start. Professor Hashi, I
Oh,
think you have slide to
because
present.
just now you were a bit, I think the net was not okay, so I didn't hear your, I was waiting
Yeah,
for
actually,
your voice.
no spot is your CV, Prof.
Oh, no worry.
The idea is that maybe you can enlighten us on the concept of creation in Islam, and maybe try to.
Well,
Yeah.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen, Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd, Dr. Yusuf, my good friend and colleague, and then my also other colleagues, Dr. Fitri, Dr. Anil, good friends and colleagues as well, Professor Samsul, the Deputy Director Academic, OCD, or Office of the Campus Director, the participant, staff, and students. Salamullahi alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First of all, I'm happy and glad to be with you today to discuss this important issue, which is actually, you can say, maybe is a classical issue, modern issue, contemporary issue, and I'm sure it will be also an issue for future generations. So it's an issue that has been discussed before, and it's being discussed now, and I'm sure it will be discussed in the future. So I just want to mention that this topic that we are discussing is not a topic that we can discuss today and settle it and finish with it, and then we say, well, we have discussed it today and then we solve it, let us move on. But I think it will be part of our academia, part of our academic discussions, and also, other discussions that are related to knowledge and education. So, well, my presentation, the topic is, as you mentioned, the genetic evolution and the Islamic theology of creation. Are there any contradictions? Do they contradict or complement? This is an issue that has been discussed, and it's discussed now, and it will be discussed in the future, as I believe. So if I may begin with, first of all, I want to make a number of disclaimers before I move into my topic. Number one, when we hear that this topic is being discussed and addressed from religious perspective, some people may think that, oh, this is the time for us to get a clear answer, you know, like more like a fatwa style, you know, this is, you know, ABC, done, you know, haram and halal, you know. In other words, normally when we discuss about issues of law, normally we seek judgmental conclusions, right? This is right or wrong or haram or halal, you know, clear-cut answer, right? So since I'm not a sheikh and I'm not a mufti, I will not be providing any fatwa today. So for those who expect me to give fatwa, I think, yeah, maybe fatwa different time and different institution, but not here. My style will be more on, you know, reading together, presenting what we know about this topic to you as a staff, to you as a student, to you as a participant. And then we try to draw lessons from, you know, the given sources that we have that have addressed this issue. Number two, I would like to say that what I'm going to share with you here is not, as you know, also Dr. Yusuf mentioned and Dr. Fitri, I'm not representing the scientific community. I'm just representing my reading, which is more like, you know, studies of the, you know, the Islamic studies on the other side, more like theology, right? So if you're expecting me to talk about particulars, like what Dr. Fitri mentioned, Dr. Fitri focused on more like particulars, you know, the genes, the codes, right? So if you're expecting me to work on ABC codes like what Dr. Fitri mentioned, no, that's not how theology works. Theology basically more on its understanding, the meaning, the conceptions, the conclusions, the worldviews. That is what we normally discuss about, right? So that is my second disclaimer. So based on that, I would also make the third disclaimer, that is the last disclaimer, is that given the fact that the discussions, the theological discussions, and also the academic writing by Muslim scholars and Muslim theologians on this topic is so wide, which we cannot cover, you know, all the details today in these 2.5 hours, you know, discussion or workshop. I choose to focus more on the, what do you call, the fundamental, you know, rather than the theories, rather than the opinions of the scholars, rather than, you know, the philosophical discussions, the details related on that. It will divert the discussion. So since we want this discussion to be more focused, more on the point, any contradiction, I think I will be focusing more on the fundamentals. And when we talk about the fundamentals about this issue, is actually the Quran and Sunnah, of course. When we talk about the Islamic theology, the foundation is the Quran and Sunnah. And when we talk about the Quran and Sunnah, basically we are talking about and what do you call the sources, and then we read together the sources. Then we see whether what we know in science as presented by Dr. Fitri is actually contradicting to what is being said in the Quran and in the Sunnah. Of course, maybe another session would be there in the future on this topic to talk about the different opinions given by different Muslim theologians about the concept of creation, especially when it comes to what they generally know, what is generally known as at-tatawwur al-udwi, or genetic modifications, you know, or genetic evolution, if you want, you know, and its implications, right? So my focus today is to make it more concise, more straightforward. I will, you know, focus on the fundamental points so we can see and read together what, you know, are the issues, what are the problems, and what is the fundamental concept of creation from Islamic perspective. Later on, we can go to other details. Okay, to begin with, number one, this is how I want to begin. Let me share with you also my, screen. I prepare a very rough, you know, a very fundamental or maybe basic, what do you call, PowerPoint slide. So if I'm allowed to present, to share with you, this is what I like to, you know, begin. This is the title: Genetic Evolution and the Teachings of Islam, the Teaching of Islam, any contradictions, right? Or any contradiction. Before I move to that, before I start, you know, the topic, I just want to put into perspective. Look, this issue of genetic evolution or the issue of, evolution in general, or the issue of creation in general, I think we need to be aware that it's actually a very important topic. Very important. Why? Because it addresses, you see, it's about one of the major, questions of life, because in this life we have some, of course, so many questions, but there are some major questions of life. Some major questions of life, when we talk about it, is like the question of origin, where all this life that we are living in today come from, whether living thing and non-living things together. Another major question that is always raised in our life is, where are we going to from here, right? We are here now, but we are moving to where? Are we going to end somewhere, or this life is going to be eternally there? Another major question is the meaning of life. Another major question is the values of life, the governing values, right? And the governing values, when we talk about it, then we talk about law, ethics, etiquettes, manners, and other different issues, right? Then we have the question of what is false and what is true. And then we have about knowledge, we have about science, we have methodologies. So we have, again, another bunch of, subjects that are raising that. So when we are talking about this topic is actually part of, answering the question of where all these come from. Specifically, now we focus on the living things. And then within the living things, we are now focusing on more like genetics, right? We narrow down, right? We narrow down. That's why discussing this issue is very important in our life. And therefore, we will discuss about it. Then now you may say, well, the science is enough. Is enough to explain. Then we say, wait a minute. Actually, look, when we talk about knowledge, what can be known, or what, when we answer the basic questions of life, from Islamic perspective, like any other religious, theology, like any other religious teaching, we have always, the reason and revelation to answer the basic questions of life. So one answer that we have is what Dr. Fitri now mentioned and share. That is from scientific perspective. This is how they, understand, and this is how they analyze, and this is how they present it. But in the meantime, we have also another source, that is the revelation, that also explains and addresses the same issue, the same topic. So revelation also speaks about the origin of life. Same as science want to understand, present, analyze, highlight, and let us know about the origin of life. Similarly, revelation also want to let us know about the sources of life. So therefore here, science and revelation share the subject that is the source of, maybe if you want, this universe, or where does the universe come from, or the source of life. That is why we need to bring these two fields together, revelation and science, and try to understand, what they share in common, and what they are, if there are differences, what are the differences? It happens sometimes that maybe they are telling us the same, revelation and reason, I put in that way, or revelation and science. But sometimes maybe we misunderstand reason and science, and therefore we think that the scientific narration or the scientific story or the scientific information contradicts the revelation. In reality, maybe that's not the case. Also, it may happen that what science said and what revelation said are same, but maybe we misunderstand the revelational message or the message of the revelation, and then we think that this message contradicts science, right? So I think the way out is always, to do the same what we are doing now. Bring those who are in the field together, and then see and read, and observe closely the two messages, the two narrations, the two narratives, if you want. Although some people, they may say there is no two narratives. Actually, it's a one narrative. Science and revelation is actually, two coins of the same, two dimensions of the same coin, right? That's how some people understand it. So therefore, I would share, inshallah, from my, reading, I will share with you the basics of, how do I say, the theology or the message, if you want. And I'm going to focus on these 4 dimensions. four dimensions of the issue. Number one, creation as a whole, the elements of the Islamic theology of creation, right? So number one, we think about the creation as a whole, general. Then we narrow down into living things. Then we focus within the living kingdom, we go into man's creation, whether it was special or it was, as some suggested, evolution based, right? Evolved. And then we narrow down from there, we go into major issues between Islamic theology and genetic evolutionists as well. So you can see my approach, it's like, because we want to put the genetic evolution into the, the major perspective, the major or grand narrative of the origin of life, where life originally comes from, right? So these are the four major issues that I'm going to touch quickly. When you read the Quran, of course, and the Sunnah of the Prophet, and of course the Islamic theology, one of the things that you notice is actually, well, let me see. Yes, one of the things that you notice immediately is that Islam teaches, number one, Islam teaches that, the belief in the existence and the lordship of Creator God. Number one, that is the Tawhidic principle. Number one, in this life as we see, or as maybe some of it we don't know, life is being given to us by a Creator God, Al-Khaliq, right? So this belief is fundamental. It's the beginning, it's the first actually. God exists, wujudullah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and his creatorship. He is the creator of life. In other words, by having that, by saying that, you see, we are ruling out of any possibility that this life is actually, moving or came to existence and generating, or, how do I say, evolving, how do I say, it's like mechanical. In other words, any thinking or any possibility that this life come from vain or from nothing, is out. Why? Because by the moment we say that we believe in the existence and the lordship of God, who is the creator of everything and everyone, then all atheistic approach to the origins of life is ruled out. Number one. Number two, the second element of the Islamic, evolution, Islamic theology is God commands, because life or the existence or the universe come from him. He commands things to exist with a command, be, and it comes to be. Kun fayakun. That is also another principle that comes after believing in the existence of God. He is the one who created everything. He is the one who caused everything from nothing to something, al-adam, or maybe from something to something, sana, right? Well, so here, the word kun fayakun, some may read it like a mechanical, like as if, kun fayakun, it's there, it's like miracle. Kun fayakun, be and it becomes, right? Or as some, mufassirun normally mention, and some theologians, God can say kun, and then it becomes through stages, fayakun. Kun, then through stages. May not be mechanical, kun, and then boom, there. He can create, kun fayakun, mechanically, if you want, or miraculously, or it could be through stages, right? Maybe through stages, as we will mention. Why? Because when we say through stages here, I just want to share with you some examples, which is like, when you read, for example, in chapter 11, hopefully someone can quote those ayat, in English and in Arabic, and can put in the chat box. As you can see here, it can be like, in chapter 11, verse number 7, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَكَانَ عَرْشُهُ عَلَى الْمَاءِ. There was a time that, according to Mufassirun, that the universe, everything that is under the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was water, liquid, right? Heavens and, and earth, everything was ma, water, right? Which shows that he is the one who commanded things to exist. But now there was a time that the universe was in the form of water, liquids, right? And then there was a time that the whole, the heavens and earth, according to the Quran, as you can see, chapter 11, chapter 21, verse number 30, that the whole universe was what? One, mass together. And then later on, فَفَتَقْنَاهُمَا, being separated. So that means Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the universe, commanded the universe, but it has taken stages, right? Because there was a time that it was only water. There was a time that it was one mass, the heavens and earth. But now there are spaces in between, right? Rather than one mass. Also, if you read, some surah, again now, some surah, some chapters, some, verses of the Quran, there is a possibility that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that human beings can observe. You see that? Human beings can observe, how he, I should make that he capital, right? How he originated the creation. كيف بدأ الخلق. قل سيروا في الأرض فانظروا, but فانظروا what? Observe what? كيف بدأ الخلق. So this is an opportunity for us also to observe how the universe has, evolved, if you want to use that word, how the creation of the universe is initiated, originated, and then move on. Because remember just now there was a hint that the universe was like liquid water, and then it became one entity, and then it became, split apart, and then, so there is a process there. There is a process within, but this process, what is important here is, this process is actually commanded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Divine command, right? It's not self-governing process, like what the atheists like to suggest, right? Okay, now we move on. So here, as you can see, this perspective, the universe as a whole, yes, this is what we have in mind. This is what we, believe and always observe within the Islamic theology. Of course, there are so many Quranic ayat, so many ahadith, but I want to focus and finish, and I will let the questions, come in. When it comes to living thing now, living things, that the one slide that I shared with you was just a brief introduction to say, well, this life come from him, and he is the one who commanded the universe to exist, and his command can be a miracle command, kun fayakun, kuni bardan, for example, when Nabiullah Ibrahim was thrown into the fire, or it could be like kun, but through stages, kun in this form, the formation, right? Now, living things. In the Quran, when we talk about the living things, there are cases, the creation of living things are focused specifically for reasons that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. So the Quran mentions that all living things come from water. The same verse that we quoted just now, right? وَجَعَلْنَا مِنَ الْمَاءِ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ حَيٍّ. God has created every living thing from water. I don't know. I'll ask later on Dr. Fitri and Dr. Yusuf and others, of course. I don't know. Is this what they mean by common ancestor? All living things. Now, it's not only the Japanese and the, what do you call, other species that we come from common ancestor. I know just now you indicated, what do they mean by common ancestor? And I think that's quite far. But here the Quran mentions that, yeah, we have a common source. All that living things, they have a common source, which is water. So is water what they mean by common ancestor in genetic evolution? Is a question that always, is asked by some scholars, right? As the Quran mentioned it here. So again, in the same surah, here you have, again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in chapter 24, verse number 45, Wallahu khalaqa kulla dabbatin mimma, right? It's God who created all living things from water, right? From water, right? So, and then the Quran mentions some of them, more specifics. So as if here, as you can see from this verse, as if, here, all living things have earned it, have earned it special creation. As if there is no such thing called genetic evolution, whereby one species have inherited basic traits from another, as you know, just now. So in other words, in this ayah, the indication is that each has been created from water, and each has been created in a more specific way, more specific or special creature, right? Or special creation, right? Again. Now, another verse of the Quran is, well, when we read the Quran, what we notice is that man is creation, or man and woman, or mankind. What we notice is that there is a special arrangement for the creation of the human being. That is what you notice. Whereby even before Adam was created, you know, the angels were informed. The angels were informed that, well, I'm about to create a new creature who's going to be the vicegerent or khalifa, whatever you call it. And then, in other words, prior to man's creation, there is an information about the what do you call? The announcement. There is an announcement about this new creation, right? And then what you notice is that, you know, this is what I want you to reflect also. And Muslim theologians always reflect on this, and Mufassirun as well. In chapter 32, Surah Al-Sajdah, verse number 6 to 7, I think 6 to 9, yeah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, الَّذِي أَحْسَنَ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ خَلْقَهُ. You see, it's God who perfected the creation of every creature. So that means every species, if you wish, or every, how do I say, like category of living things, their creation is a creation that is especially given to them, according to that verse. Chapter 31, verse number 6 until 9. الَّذِي أَحْسَنَ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ, everything, or every, you know, maybe species if you want, right? كُلَّ شَيْءٍ خَلْقَهُ. And then what happened? وَبَدَأَ خَلْقُ الْإِنسَانِ مِنْ طِينٍ. He started the creation of mankind from clay. So in other words, some ulama said, wait a minute, وَبَدَأَ خَلْقُ الْإِنسَانِ مِنْ طِينٍ. وَبَدَأَ in Bahasa Arab, bada means initiated, begin, started, right? So that means it started from clay, but then after that, what happened? Someone to put the possibility that it doesn't deny the possibility that the human being has undergone, you know, micro change. I do not know. I don't want to theorize about the macro change, right? From species to species, right? I will leave that one to your imagination, right? And some wanted to let the ayah, you know, include that aspect. But what the ayah confirms is, it's God who gives everything its own creation, you know, its own features of creation. And it started human being from, what do you call? The clay, right? وَبَدَأَ خَلْقَ الْإِنسَانِ مِنْ طِينٍ. And then that's not the end. That's not the end, the formation of man's body. Here the Quran mentions that, the Quran says, فَإِذَا, you know, وَبَدَأَ خَلْقَ الْإِنسَانِ مِنْ طِينٍ ثُمَّ جَعَلَ نَسْلَهُ مِنْ صَلَالَةٍ ثُمَّ سَوَّاهُ. The formation, you know, the body formation, the biological formation, physiological, the physical formation. ثُمَّ سَوَّاهُ. And then وَنَفَخَ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِهِ. And then he breathed it, you know, his spirit, more like characterizing, humanizing, as if, you know, the formation of the body may take certain stages, but eventually there is a characterization, there is a humanization, right? وَنَفَخَ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِهِ, right? And the Mufassirun has a lot of, you know, discussions on that, the Muslim theologians. So that means the human body, there is a focus there. If you notice, the body of the human being, it's been specifically focused in the Quran, you know, not only from biological aspect, but also the spiritual, intellectual, the ruh aspect, a special arrangement. Then now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions with special comment and characterization, that is soul and spirit. And then what is, I will share with you the ayat. What I like you to do, and the Mufassirun and theologians are doing, they always focus on the element that the Quran mentions, is that lima khalaqtu biyadayya. For example, chapter 38, verse number 72, Surah As-Sad. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke to the angels and said, when what I created by my own hands, you know, of course, on hands, you know, later on we can discuss about the theological aspect, right? We are not talking about the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So, but the Quran mentions that what I create, you know, when I create by my own hands. So there is no possibility that we can say, well, there is a random chance, you know. No, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, no, I created this with my, you know, in a special arrangement, special power, right? Special creation. And not only created with my own hand, but the Quran mentions that, and I breathe my own spirit. وَنَفَخْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِهِ there. So it's very powerful, in fact. So there is a focus that the human being has received, it actually a special arrangement, a special way of creation, right? Okay, I move on. So of course, we talk about it later on, you know, the purpose, the aim, the special task, faculties, and, you know, capacities. Later on, we can talk about it, right? The moral aspect, right? Moral aspect. I don't have to focus on that. So now if we read the Quran, this is what I want you to do. The Quran mentions that step by step. Number one, for the human being, for the human creation, there was a time that man was nothing to be mentioned. There was a time that nothing to talk about, does not exist, right? 76, verse number 1. Hal ata ala al-insani hinun min ad-dahr. There was a time that, a period of time, that the human being was nothing to mention. It does not exist, right? Lam yakun shay'an madhkura, right? Okay. Then it starts now. Adam is created from a dust, turab, soul, right? So there we have, you know, now stage 2. Nothing to mention, absent. Now we started from clay, from turab, soul. Then from turab, then we have created of man from clay, as we mentioned just now. Deen, you know, turab, clay, very simple. And then more developed. Now the Quran mentions also that not only clay, but now it's specific clay. Sticky clay, deenin lazib, you know, sticky clay. Maybe biologists or those who are specializing in, and you know, can have some reading on this. I'm sharing with you the ayat, just selected ayat, right? Another stage that the Quran mentions is that, you know, not only that from a sticky clay, but molded mat, you know, molded mat, right? Min hama'in masnoon. Chapter 15, verse number 26, right? Min hama, darkened, you know, right? Molded again now. From turab, clay, sticky, now become molded, right? Not only that, but also the Quran mentions he created man from a hard clay like bricks. More like, how do we say, you know, tinar, and it's like sounding, you know, min salsal, right? Khalaqal insana min salsal, right? Surah Ar-Rahman. You remember that, right? Okay, now another stage, right? Okay, then formed him and breathed into him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala now speaks, my spirit, ruhi, right? وَنَفَخْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ ruhi, right? So this is what we have in the Quran. Then after that, the Quran talks about Surah Al-Mu'min. Reproduction takes place in the womb of the mothers, you know, خَلَقَ الْإِنسَانَ مِنْ صَلْصَالٍ مِنْ نُطْفَةٍ عَلَقَةٍ مُضْغَةٍ, and then the process that is, you know, known to, you know, the biologists, right, and physiologists, and physiology and anatomy, right? So this is man's creation. The message that the ulama focus here is, you know, these type of ayat and other similar ayat of the Quran, they teach us, you know, certain message. Number one is, man's creation was not accidental. You see, man's creation is not an accidental, specially arranged, specially managed, specially formed. So there is a focus, you know, and I like how Muslim theologians put this one. You know, it's like the focus is like, you know, there are certain area of our life that is not focused in the Quran, but the human creation is being specifically focused, as if maybe Allah knows that this is going to be a subject of discussions, right? Maybe between scientists and theologians, I don't know. but there is a focus. It's being focused, right? So the message here is man's body is not accidental. It's not random, chance, put in that way. That is the message I would like to mention here. Then the conclusion, my last slide, I will give chance to questions. My last slide is, now knowing that a general perspective, this life is being created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's like this life is being guided and, commanded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then living things have, this kind of origin as well. And man's life is not accidental. Knowing this, and then listening to Dr. Fitri and, and his presentation, now we have this question now. What are the things that these two, discussions share in common, both in that way? Or what are the, as Dr. Fitri put it, although he meant for something else, I like the way he put it. He said burning questions, right? Right. Yeah, normally like rising questions, right? That is what we want to say, right? Because these discussions are there, by the way, YouTube, Google's, we are just reviving it, but the discussions are there, right? So major questions between Islamic theology and genetic evolution. Major issue is number one. Well, normally those who in genetic evolution or evolutionism, they talk about the possibility of, I don't know, it's not a possibility. For them, it's more like a fact, right? A time that has existed before Adam and Eve creation, right? That's what they mentioned. There was a time where Eve and Adam, came, but before Eve and Adam, they are now studying what has existed before them. Maybe dinosaurs, other creatures, hominids, other creatures that existed. And then from, this is what they put. Maybe from that creatures, some of them has developed into, I don't know. I don't want to act like a scientist. I am not. I shouldn't speak on that, right? I shouldn't speak on behalf of that. But this is my just understanding. So, well, same goes to Islamic theology. The Muslim theology also, yeah, that, look, we are not talking, if let us say you talk about, has life existed before Adam? Then the theologians, they ask you, what do you mean by life? Then you say, well, the wujud. Yeah, then we say, yeah, things existed according to the Quran. What we notice, for example, in Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called, told the angels. The angels were there. The Iblis was there. In other words, there were creatures before Adam. And then the Quran mentions that Inni ja'ilun fil ard. That means the earth was there, right? The earth was there. And of course, when we talk about earth, of course, a place of livelihood, right, was there. So when it comes to things, has things existed before Adam? Muslim theologians will say, yeah, we have no reason to deny. In fact, there are creatures. But when you say that, no, actually what I mean is, does the Quran say about dinosaurs, other makhluqat, other, species? And then we Muslim theologians, they will say, well, you can imagine, but that is at least not what the Quran tells us, right? So there they have the concept of tawaqquf, they stop. But if you just want to imagine and then use your creativity, I know there were some creatures existed before Adam, and the angels knew those creatures. That's why the angels asked God, are you going to create a makhluqat, who will bloodshed? Then for us, yeah, you can imagine, you can exercise your creativity, fine, we have no issue. But we have no position to say this is a Quranic teaching or Sunnah teaching. So we stop there. But you can have your fantasy, you can go up, as you like. But the moment you say it's a Quranic teaching or it's a Sunnah teaching, then we say, okay, there you stop, right? So did time exist before Adam and Eve? Yeah, no issue. But specification of what existed before that is where the ulama stop and they tawaqquf, right? Number two, living things are all connected to one common ancestor. As you said just now, chimpanzees, human being, or Homo sapiens. Maybe as you said, the belief is that among the scientists, as you mentioned, Dr. Fidri, they do believe that there is a common ancestor, right? We belong to, because all these similarities, as you mentioned, right? But this is an issue that the ulama also do like a tawaqquf, because there is no mention there, right? There is no mention in the Quran or in the Sunnah, right? But if as I said, if you are referring to common ancestor as a water, yeah, the Quran says, Allahu khalaqa kulla dabbatin min ma. Every living creature is being created from water. And if that is what you mean by common ancestor, then we say, yeah, it's been mentioned it there. Right? And then you say, no, we know today some analysis, A, B, C, D. Then we say, okay, welcome, let us see what you have, right? We will listen to you more. Finally, there is an issue of mechanism and process, right? Mechanism, because when they talk about genetic evolution, they talk about the mechanisms of how it takes place through natural selection, random mutation, as you just mentioned, right? So here is a serious issue, and here is where the ulama will feel like, yes, it may lead to contradiction now. Up to now, maybe it was not that obvious, the contradiction, but here the contradiction begins. When they say natural selection, as scholars mentioned, theologians, including like Dr. Shuaib, I will share with you the link, inshallah. He has a very beautiful presentation, and he has a very useful book, actually, published in 2021, actually, one of our colleagues, me and Dr. Yusuf. So, as the ulama mentioned here, when you say natural selection, here is where the problem exists. What do you mean by is natural selection now an agent, independent agent, that is causing things to happen without any divine intervention? That like what atheism want to suggest. So if the concept of natural selection is understood, you see, as an independent agent that is self-acting or self-reliant, whereby it is the one that causes things to exist or change without the divine guidance, then Islamic theology and genetic evolution go into conflict. Because in Islam, nothing exists in this life without the guidance and command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the will of him, right? So that means you are suggesting that, more like a theistic approach, which theologians will question and say, hey, wait a minute, that one has no place. But if you mean like natural selection, if you mean that it is a God-given or God-guided or God-commanded natural way of things happening, if you put these kind of creatures in this place, in this environment, gene environment into play, then they will function in this way with the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, alladhi khalaqa fahadda. It's God who created and guided. Then theologians will say, okay, that issue, we have no problem with it. We only need to know the steps. That is what they will ask you. Same goes to random mutation. If you mean by random mutation, it's like what? Random. Random basically means unguided, accidental, right? Things are happening without, it's like, how do you say, blind mechanism, blindly, it may happen in this way or in this way, right? Randomized. So then we say, wait, do you mean that these random, in fact, it's a very serious business there, as scholars mentioned, right? Even if we put like this random mutation is guided by God, actually it becomes worse now. Because as Dr. Shuaib mentioned and others, I like the way they put it. It's like as if you are suggesting like an idiot God, subhanallah, right? Who doesn't know what he's doing. It's just randomizing things, right? Which theologians cannot accept, right? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, milladun hakimin alim. God is, with wisdom and hikmah and ilm. So there is no issue of, what do you call? Random, right? So these two things actually are burning issues, I can say, between theology and genetic evolution, right? So the theologians will tell you, well, we don't believe such thing called randomized or random, everything must be planned and in the ilm of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? الذي خلق فهدى الذي أحسن كل شيء خلقه ثم هدى, right? That is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran. So that is also another burning issue, right? Finally, I know that scientists, you know, look, I'm not a scientist and I'm not supposed to speak on behalf of science, right? But I know science is in progress and science is moving forward, right? We are always, you know, you guys are adding new info, new understanding, new, you know, reading, right, every day. And that is the beauty of science. And then there are cases where, you know, the possibility of, you know, maybe the theory itself, you know, there are some errors somewhere here and there is there. So theologians are worried that, you know, because for them, what they believe is either, look, something has to be scientific fact for yaqeen, confirm, yaqeen, certainty, or it has to be, how do I say, revelation based. Not only revelation based, even within revelation, it has to be what? Qad'iyu dilala, as they say, you know. Not only qad'iyu thubut, as they like, conclusive, you know, what do you call, subtle, you know, foundation, but also it has to be with conclusive meaning, right? So these two elements are very important for them. They just want to know a conform source and conform signification, right? Conform and conclusion, right? So certainty is always an issue between these, you know, theories, grand theories that you guys are using, and the theologians, because theologians, they want to form foundation with form interpretation. So certainty is also another burning issue between, you know, theories, if you like, and, you know, also theologians. So with that, I like to say, well, if you're asking me, are there any contradictions? Well, it depends which area of contradiction we have to, which area we have to, you know, which direction we have to look into. But if you say, well, are they in conformity? Then we say which direction we have to look into. And that's why this issue is never ending an issue. It's always be there. I don't think it's wise, I should say this, it's wise to downgrade this issue of, you know, what the scientists are doing and just brush aside and say, well, you know, forget about it and downgrade it or downplay it into that way. I don't think that's a wise, you know, step to take. And at the same time, I don't think also it's wise to say, to ignore the theological, you know, what do you call, approach as well, and focus only on the mechanical aspect or material aspect. That also may be misguiding. But I like this discussion personally to move on and continue. That's what I want to say. Sorry if I have taken longer time. Huh?
Yeah, Prof. Hashim, done, alhamdulillah.
Yeah, done. Back to you, Dr. Yusuf.
Okay, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. We have come to the sessions that we are waiting for. Maybe Dr. Hashim, you want to stop sharing? Yeah.
Yep.
And alhamdulillah, based on these two presentation, I noticed that Dr. Fitri has talked about the mechanism of genetic evolution, while Dr. Hashim was talking about the theological behind it. How do we understand and where are the contradictions, and etc. The point of certainty just now is unique. Let's say in forensic science, for example, there are cases for 30 years, 20 years. It's difficult for us even to reconstruct the event. Now we are talking about 4.6 billion years. And then we claim that we know for certainty what happens in the past, right? Surely there are a lot of discussion going on. We are taking the approach, in the middle approach, that we're not going to ignore everything, like subscribe to the fallacy of ignorance, or we are accepting everything as if it's not going to be changed. As we know that even Thomas Kuhn mentioned about the scientific paradigm, over a time, certain theories, certain facts can be changed accordingly. So not going too much discuss on that. I'm going to share something very important because we're going to start for the question and answer. Before that, for audience, if you have any questions to ask, I'll allow you later on. Please raise your hand here. We're going to unmute you. You can ask directly. But before we go for the question from the audience, I myself got questions, burning questions. I will start with Dr. Fitri first. Dr. Fitri, you have mentioned about the mechanism of evolution or genetic evolution just now. It's very clear about us. How does the more information add up to the genes? So we do know that there are different numbers of chromosomes between us and the chimps, right? You were talking about the similarities in genetics and the differences. That is fine. So we are not here to look upon all of the evidence of evolution. We're just focusing on genes. Maybe the other issue of
Human
anthropology, issue of the skeleton and etc. can be discussed later on. But one of the I would say facts or theories or information pertaining to common ancestry between humans and chimps, the idea of the fusion of chromosome, especially at the chromosome number 2, right? It's been mentioned that, especially in this particular genomic research, mentioned that it's a head-to-head fusion of 2 ancestral chromosomes. And because of this, it shows that the evidence of common ancestry. So what is your view on this?
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you. Can I see the abstract? Betul, sir.
Oh, you want to see again? Okay. Fine. You just yeah, let me show it to you.
Okay, human chromosome, genome structure and evolution of the ancestor chromosome fusion site to Q-tip parallel region of the other human chromosome, formed by head-to-head fusion of 2 ancestor chromosomes that remain separate in other primate sequence that once resetted near the end of ancestor chromosome. Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. The question, apa soalannya?
So the idea is that what is your view on fusion?
Okay.
Can we accept this? Yeah.
I'm not going to whether say we have to accept or reject. I just have to say that that is one of the study that mentioned that we because we have 23 pairs and monkeys, the family of chimpanzee, orangutan, they have 24 pairs. So one of it is the chromosome fusion. So this is not how to say, because I'm not studying chromosome fusion in human and monkey, but it's just come into my mind lah. In mutation, there are two possibilities, whether you became chromosome fusion or chromosome duplication. So honestly, I don't know what happened if you say we have common ancestor between human and chimpanzee families. So it may say it may I don't know about the level of the study. I mean, how many studies has been done about the chromosome fusion in the chimpanzee and human punya origin. But I think one of the postulation or theory is we have chromosome fusion. But why we don't have another theory that you have chromosome duplication from 23 to 24? So that is my point of view. I don't have. I mean, like Dr. Razak, I'm agree with Dr. Razak %. And in this case, I don't give my opinion whether to reject or to accept this study. That is one. And I want to mention, if I can mention here, that most of us tend to say that when you accept evolution or mutations means that you reject the creation of Adam. This is a bit theology lah. So I'm not the theologist or guy in theology. So, but this is my point of view. I'm sorry if I'm taking all of your times, because when I'm doing my degree, of course, based from that and during that time, the understanding is when you accept evolutions means you reject Adam, creation of Adam alayhi salam. But over the time, when you study, you research, then in my this is my journey. Yes, I did see some mutation happen in fish lah, because my study was in fish that has been radiated due to the nuclear disaster in Japan. So yes, it happened. Mutation do occur due to some factors, but mutation can be good, can be bad. So in my case, what I saw is bad, and it didn't code for anything lah. It's just point mutation changes, but it's just the same protein. So there are things that we have sometimes. This is from the perspective theology. Dr. Razak, you may comment on this lah. So to me, sometimes science cannot describe. Science cannot explain some parts in the religion. So what I saw now is a lot of people, they want to use science to describe everything in religion. So to me, it's not it's not perfect. It's like it's not proper to use science to describe everything, to describe religion. Because religions, if you read Quran, a'udzubillahi minasyaitonir rajim, alif lam mim dzalikal kitab la raiba fihi hudal lil muttaqin alladzina yu'minuna bil ghaib. So for those who believe in Islam, you believe in something that we call ghaib, kan? Alladzina yu'minuna bil ghaib. So there are things that cannot be described by science. So I give you an example. Sorry if I'm quite far away from the questions that Yusuf. So I think I have answered this question. So I give to you two cases in Quran which totally contradict with science. So first is the in Surah Baqarah. Allah said in Surah Baqarah about how He punish the Israels. Walaqad alimtumul ladzina tadaw minkum fis sabt faqulna lahum kunu qiradatan khasi'in. Means you are from you are transgress, you do bad things during Saturday. So we said to them, be a monkey, and fakulna lahum kunu qiradatan khasi'in. So we change you all to become monkeys that are despised or degenerates. So it means that when we believe in Quran or Islam, there are things that cannot be explained or contradict with science. So do you say that when you believe in Quran, you totally reject science, or when you believe in science, you totally reject Quran and Islam? No, there are several things that cannot be explained by science. There are things, and okay, another case is when in Surah Maryam, Qala innama ana rasulur rabbik li ahadi labbik li ahabalaki ghulaman zakiya. When the angels come to Maryam, he said, I'm just a messenger to tell you that Allah will bless you with a son. So you know that when in human, we need a father and mother. And the chromosome means one part of chromosome, 23 from mother, 23 from father. Then you can get 21, so you can get a complete set of human lah. But in Quran, Allah said this story about Maryam, and we believe it because this is what we call miracle. So why we want, when something miracle, we believe science cannot explain because it's miracle. So when the creation of Adam, why to me previous year, a lot of years during my undergrad, yes, I tried to relate. I tried to explain the creation of Adam using science, but over the time and a lot of discussion, thank you to Dr. Razak, he's my teacher, why we want to explain creation of Adam, which is miracle, by science, that science cannot explain miracles. That is me lah, that is just my point of view. So that's all from me, I think. I just say what I know, and if I don't know, I say I don't know. So I'm trying to be honest. And we have to be honest with our knowledge lah. So it's not that okay, because we are Islam, we have to reject evolution, we have to reject mutations. I don't think that is a wise decision, and vice versa. Wallahu alam. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I agree with Dr. Fitri. Whatever scientific explanation should be taken as a working hypothesis, and we need to verify it. Even in religion, that when something news comes to us, fatabayyanu. Chapter number 49, Al-Hujurat, right, mentioned about the thing. But I think there are two views here. Number one is that something that not known to us, which is the mechanism is unknown, and something that really contradiction. For example, you mentioned about miracles. Miracles is beyond explanation because we know that it happens, is outside of the norm. That is the concept of miracle. So we should have another webinar on this to talk about miracles. But especially in our theology as well, we are talking about causal relationship. Right? For example, a fire can burn, but there are certain circumstances the fire does not burn. In the case of Ibrahim alayhi salam. So even the issue of causality has been discussed heavily in terms of philosophy. But I'm not going in depth on that. I'm coming again to now to Dr. Hashi. Now to Dr. Hashi, I want to share something to you just for our information. Let me share a little bit. Let me go back. Okay, this is a study been done in college biology students in US. So they were doing some studies to do some survey, thousands of students, two type of study to see whether they are, means that when you believe or accept evolution, means you can't believe in God. So they found that 56.5% of college biological students perceive that evolution is atheistic. It is because one of the things you mentioned just now, it is because mostly random processes. Though in gene expression, there are two theories by this Kimura and also by others who mentioned, but it's not purely random. So let's say, Dr. Hashi, let's say we agree with all of the modern theories of evolution, genetics, and etc. So can we accept that this is without any God? Can we accept without any God? And addition question for that. So what is the position of Adam? Let's say we believe that now we have two narrative here. One narrative that we are coming from single cell, and another thing that Adams are created from clays and etc. How do we fit these two views? There are few alternatives there. Some mention that the theory of exceptionalism of Adam alayhi salam. So how do you view this and how you relate this with the concept of randomness just now? I hope, because it's two questions.
Okay,
so
the first question.
Yeah.
Accused, if you don't mind, what was the first question again?
Do you agree that one of the atheistic views that leads to the evolution behind that is the randomness that causes people to have to subscribe to the atheistic views?
Oh, that means the theory of evolution is causing people to become atheists. Is it? That's the question?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, something like that, right? Yeah. And the second question was
about Adam creation exception theory.
Oh, exceptionalism,
yeah.
right? Exceptionalism.
Yeah.
Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. As I said, and I think Dr. Fidri also mentioned, this topic is very, deep and very critical topic if we put it as a critical topic. But if we put it in a, like any other topic that is open for discussion and very academia-oriented topic, it becomes more relaxed topic. But more often than not, I think people tend to, look for yes or no answers in this topic, which to me is unfair to this topic, because the topic itself by nature is very wide and it has different dimensions, different aspects. So it's not that, the answers are not black and white. The answers is not something that you can say, well, yes, here you go, and no, here you go. Because when you ask, for example, the question of the issue of evolution, the first challenge that comes in mind is, what do you mean by evolution? Is it evolution that is self-governed evolution, whereby there is no, for example, you see, if you start with this, there is no God and no divine power in this universe. It's just like we are here, everything is here, atoms, cells, what do you call, tissues, all these one, I just randomize. It is like a random chance. We are all here accidentally. So of course, that approach, we say straightforward, we say, no, that is not what we believe, because the premises that you give is actually a premises that we not agree with. So not only the word itself is now a problem, but the premises that is prior than the word itself is an issue, right? Now God, this universe existed accidentally. Then the mechanism is evolution. So the evolution now an issue. Why? Because the premises before it is a problematic and unacceptable to us. But if you start with the idea that, okay, this universe is being created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God creator exists, and he is the one who created the universe, and he is the one who is not only commanding but also nourishing, guiding, and therefore he can create with a command, as you said, kun fayakun, or kun fayakun could be like in taking certain durations, arba'at ayam, sittata ayam. Yeah, and we can say, okay, that type of evolving with the guidance and command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Muslim theologians may say, well, we have no problem with that concept of evolution, right? But evolution with the concept of godless, then it's an issue. That's why, to me, the approach that always want to have yes or no answers in this field is unfair to the topic, actually, because the words, the approach are not clear. Okay, that's number one. Number two, yeah, it's true that I think I have noticed it, in the literature available on this topic, I have noticed that there are some people, because of evolution, they thought, well, genetic evolution or evolution generally, they thought answers the question of where the universe come from, right? Because one of the major questions, as I said in the beginning of life, in fact, they say sometimes 6 or 7 basic, essential questions of life. Sometimes they call cosmological questions of life. One of the questions is the question of origin. Where does life come from? Where do we come from? How come we arrived here? How we ended up here? So when that question is raised, then of course, historically, for example, let us say philosophers, they have their own approach, like Plato, Aristotle, they have first cause, the uncaused cause. They always have something to begin with, right? Then they develop their, theories about life. But religiously, the theologians always, say, well, life comes from God, and God is the source of life. So for them, they answer it in that way. Then they answer the rest of the questions. But now we have an approach, atheistic or materialism, that want to answer the question of origin with evolution, because they thought like, actually, wait, because we understand how this, the mechanisms of how genes and how, DNA and how all these function. Therefore, since all these functions are guided by evolving or evolution, or whether randomized or systemized, or I don't know what, the scientists want to use, they thought actually evolution is the answer to the question of origin. So since we can answer the question of origin, then atheism says, well, then we don't need creator God. Why? Because for them, we know how the universe come to exist, how we come to here, we already know. So why do we need to believe in God? As if the belief in God is no longer, valid to them. Why? Because we know how the world works. As if the world is like a functioning machine, mechanical machine, which functions according to an internal agent that is holding it together and letting it move and function. But theologians will respond and say, wait a minute, before I go to theologians, that conception, which to the theologians is a misconception, the conception that the question of origin can be answered through evolution, which according to theologians is misconception, is actually causing some people to become atheists. Why? Because as I said, they thought the question of origin is answered through the concept of evolution. But the theologians will encounter and say, hey, wait a minute, guys, you check your assumption, you check your conception, because when we raise the question of origin, it's different. You see, this is what they want to say. It's different. You see, when we talk about evolve, because evolve is a process. Evolving is a process. If we let us assume that genetics is evolving. Let us assume, for the sake of argument, right? But theologians will say, wait, evolve does not mean beginning. Evolve is a process. Let us say the universe evolved 4 billion, 40 billion, how many billion years ago? But after all, when you say, oh, the universe began from Big Bang, let us say, moment, triggered, and therefore, since then we're evolving, the theologians will say, actually, you said nothing meaningful about the question of origin, because you tell me evolve. Evolve is just a process. I'm not asking about the process of how the universe became and became. I'm not asking you. I'm asking you the moment of beginning. It's like theologians are talking about, how do I say, it's like we have eternal void, nothing exists, then something begins to exist. Then it may evolve. Then they don't have problem with that, right? Absolute nothing, how do I say, a vacuum void, zero, cosm, no energy, no air, no, how do I say, condensed ball, whatever they call this, what do you call the evolution, what do you call Big Bang theory? They say, well, the theologians are talking about actually emptiness, total empty, zero, then something initiated. But when this evolution, they don't mind that the universe begin and then evolved with the guidance of God. They don't mind that one. So this approach that says, well, we don't need to believe in the creator God. Oh, wait a minute. Why? Because the universe is, as a result of evolution. Then we say, hey, wait a minute. When does this evolution begin? And then number two, who caused it? It shouldn't be a self-cause, right? Who caused it? Even if we believe, let us say, what the scientists say, just like Big Bang. Of course, this Big Bang surely is not a self-governed, self-guided. Where does the energy and the heat come from that caused the big, explosion? So actually, what this evolutionist is talking is just a process. But theologians are not talking about only the process. They are going beyond the process, which is, where does it all begin? Not how it evolved. And therefore, this misconception is causing a lot of headache and confusion, I know, among many, young generations, which that's why we choose this topic to discuss within our academia. And that's why we are academically discussing about it. And I'm sure we will discuss about it in the coming days as well.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Dr. Hashi, for the explanation. As for me, I believe that regardless of the mechanism, for example, we talk about Adam alayhi salam, there are a lot of possible explanation. One of the explanation mentioned that even the descendants of Adam and the Neanderthals merge and come because they mentioned that in the genomic studies we have like few percentage similarities with the Neanderthals, for example. By the end of the day, we still have the same father, which is Adam alayhi salam. So Adam alayhi salam is being inserted into the system. So this is a possible explanation, because until now we have a problem to discuss the origin of life. How can the life came to existence? If we are talking about DNA need enzymes to transcribe to protein, right? So you need to DNA for protein, you need protein for DNA. So both ways, still a lot of explanation coming on. A lot of questions are coming on now, but I'd like to quote one of the comment by our respected Gary Dargan. He got a PhD in ISTEC, was talking about part of the problem is the insistence of some Christianists misrepresenting science and presenting an approach of either you believe in God or you believe in science. This mutually exclusive approach creates both atheists and science deniers. I think Dr. Gary, sorry, if you want to share something about these things, you can unmute yourself. If is it possible for you?
Please.
Yeah. Because I see a lot of good comments from you. If you can try to unmute you. Yeah. Yes, please.
Hello?
Yes, we can listen to you. Yeah.
Okay. This discussion's been very interesting. The issue of atheism versus belief and so on. This is one of the problems we have. Sort of what you call two separate magisteria, the magisteria of science and the magisteria of theology. And a lot of people believe they shouldn't overlap. The problem comes is when theologians get in their corner and say you either believe in God, believe in science, you can't have both. And the scientists get into their corner and say you have to believe in science because science excludes God. Now, that doesn't work.
Actually, the sound is a bit cutting. We can't really hear to you, Dr. Gary. Yeah. I think we got some. The speakers can hear. Dr. Hashi
No,
and
Clear.
yeah, I think Dr. Gary has a problem with his mic. The mic is not there. Okay, it's fine. While waiting for Dr. Gary to come again, because it's actually a lot of things he mentioned in the chat.
Yeah.
Okay, let us allow Dr. Arifin. Dr. Arifin is here. Dr. Gary, we give to Dr. Arifin first. Yeah, Dr. Arifin, please welcome.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Am I back?
Okay. Let us see.
Yes, I'm back. Connections misbehaving. It doesn't work when you try. You have to talk how the two overlap. has basically been the topic of my PhD thesis. There are a whole lot of issues that evolution raises for essentially theology, whether Christian theology, Islamic theology, theology, or other theologies. And you have to bridge the gap to actually answer those questions. And so I quite agree with both speakers. You can't put yourself in one corner and sort of lob bombs or throw bombs at the person in the other corner. You have to get in the middle somewhere and actually come to some sort of agreement.
Really, your voice is not clear. Is the
Yeah.
net is so slow and so
Gary,
heavy?
unfortunately, because we can't really.
I'll just
Yeah, maybe you can type it.
just
type
try
it.
something.
Yeah, maybe you can summarize it, your point on the chat box, because I think your voice is the sound is not good for us to listen to. Yeah. Okay. Let us proceed to Dr. Arifin
Yes.
first. Dr. Arifin.
I know it's there we are.
Okay, Dr. Arifin.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Inshallah, it's a very enlightening session. I really enjoyed the presentation, lectures from both our Sheikh, Dr. Fitri, and also Prof. Sheikh, my respected teacher, Prof. Abdul Razak. MashaAllah, very enlightening. I just want to ask a question. As our respected Dr. Yusuf also mentioned about Neanderthal gene and the recent discovery. Also, in light of the recent announcement that the Swante Pabo, the discoverer or the researcher that has long studied regarding Neanderthal genomes and their similarities with Homo sapiens, received the Nobel Prize 2022, 22, right? I would like to just hear the view from both our speakers, especially Dr. Fitri. You know, how do you find this establishment or this the findings with regard to Neanderthal genomes and their similarity with Homo sapiens fit into the story of the origin of human beings that we discussed today? I used to joke, I used to joke with Dr. Razak, especially with regard to the finding that the Neanderthal genes, some percentage of Neanderthal gene found in various ethnicities in the world today, or in ethnicities of human today, but not in African, right? So I mean, jokingly, does it seem that if Homo sapien, pure Homo sapiens are the pure sons of Adam, does that mean Africans are the pure son of Adam, and while we are the rest of the other ethnicities are actually hybrids with the or subspecies that has hybrid between Neanderthal and interbreeding between Neanderthal and Homo sapiens. Just yeah, I'm interested to listen to your view on this.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, good, mashallah. If you can notice on the chat box, Dr. Gary has mentioned in brief that his view that we cannot have scientists in one trench and theologians in another throwing bombs at each other. Okay, fine. And that leaves everyone else in no man's lands between. They have to find a common ground. I think this is a good thing, but I want to share, there are questions about soil just now, mentioning about our components maybe coming from soils, etc., right? There's a comment in YouTube mentioning that there's one brother want to mention about the perspective in microbiology. We talk about Streptomyces, the largest genus of actinobacteria commonly found in soil. But in humans, actinobacteria are estimated to make up around 1/3 of the gut microbiota, which are beneficial to human health and nutrition. Although Streptomyces are not common pathogens in humans. So you give some lights about the components of certain bacteria that coming from the soil. Okay, let us proceed a little bit. I think I want to go to Dr. Fitri, a little bit about microevolution and macroevolution. There's a question that pertaining to microevolution. For example, some theists, not atheists, say that we can accept microevolution but reject macroevolution. To give you an example, for example, microbiologists will remain as microbiologists. The microbes will not turn to become microbiologists. What is your view, Dr. Fitri?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Gary. Actually, I want to listen to Dr. Gary, but couldn't. But it's okay. First question from Dr. Arifin Abayipin, regarding Homo neanderthal and Homo sapiens. So honestly, I don't divulge much into Homo species study. But my opinion is, my standing opinion is, yes, mutation occur, evolution did occur. And that is that, but I also believe that in the creation of Adam. And my point of view is Adam is a miracle. So the mechanism of how Allah put Adam in the origin of life, I don't know. We have to ask Allah later. That is my point of view. I just say what I know and I don't know. And the second question is about the micro and macro. Yes, microevolution did occur, but macroevolution is how to say, okay. So we know how the function or the mechanism, Dr. Razak said about mechanism. So we know how mutation and natural selection occur to develop into speciation. I always want to make it clear that when we say about speciation, it didn't change into species that already exist, but it will develop into something that we describe as a new species. So as an example, in my field, in fish, so we try to describe species, means that we have a lot of catfishes, and then when we go to another area, and then we caught the fish, and then we describe the morphology, and we see there are clear, distinct morphology differences. So we describe it as a new species. It didn't suddenly evolve like, I always say it didn't suddenly evolve like Pokemon in one night or something. Over the time, they develop a new characteristic. A new characteristic doesn't mean it's totally different. It's totally different. Doesn't mean that. So in human, mutation in our eye coloration that caused the blue eye in Caucasian, but they still same species, not different species. But in fish, when you have clear distinctive species, some scientists will describe it as a new species. But it's still, still there are discussion among the scientists. Some describe it as a species A, some still describe it as species B, the previous species. So when we say about the description of a new species, it will come from the origin or the father or the ancestor of the species. So it didn't necessarily 100% different. Yes, I agree. Microbe didn't evolve into microbiologists. But microbe, if they did evolve, is still microbe. So that is microevolution. Macroevolution is the concept that states we develop into new phylum of taxa. When we say about taxonomy, is when you put things into together with similarity. That is the taxonomies lah. When you talk about taxonomies, we have plant taxonomies, fish taxonomies. So it's a huge knowledge. So I'm not in the position to talk all about that, but we have to know that information is how you put things into to works lah, so into perspective. So but then again, I agree with Dr. Razak 100%. I want to talk more about a bit about natural selections. This is a bit theology lah. So about natural selections. When we say natural selections, of course they are, it's natural. But in plants and animals, there's a lot of human intersection of preferences. As an example, in paddy. So in Malaysia, we develop a lot of variety of paddy because we have preferences. Also in fish. So in fishes also, we develop certain criteria. Even we produce hybrid because we want to fulfill our preferences. But it didn't make it will develop into a new species. It's just some variant, some variety, a new strain, but it didn't develop into a new species because over the time of it will change due to the environment and also human preferences. That is an animal and plants lah. In organism as a whole, natural selections means the environment and then the migrations and of course we believe that environment, migration, whatever things that happen in the whole world is already determined by Allah. Allah knows it. Allah manage it on his own way. God manage it on his own way. How he manage it, we don't know. And it's just like we got married. Is God arranged your marriage? We don't know. That is what I want to convey the information. So
a quick question to Dr. Fitri. Just a quick question regarding mutation in fish. Do that mutation carry into the next generations? There are question mentioning of this.
Wait. I try. Yes, Dr. Gary. Same with me. Agree with your understanding about microevolution and macroevolution. Agree. Yes, Dr. Yusuf. Sorry, the question.
Okay, there was a question just now mentioning about regarding the mutation in fish. Do that mutations carried into the next generation?
Okay. In my study, it didn't carry into the next generation because when we observe the mutations. Wait. I want to. Okay. In my study, we don't know whether it's carried into the next generations. But the point is, the mutation is not coding for any new protein. So it's just a base substitution lah. So it didn't code for a new protein.
Yeah, we still got another 13 minutes before I go to Dr. Hashi. Anyone from the floor you wanted to say anything or comment?
Yusuf, if you allow me, I would like to comment one thing.
Yeah, you can comment.
First of all, I would like to, I wish I can, we can listen, to Dr. Gary, because I think he since he has PhD in this area.
Yes.
I wish he has a good internet connection and looking forward, of course, for his discussion, because ISTAC is actually a place where, science and revelation, integration is always studied, and that's I think why it was established in the beginning. So when he mentioned that he has a PhD, from ISTAC, I was actually looking and with anticipation to listen to his comments and hopefully if not today, maybe in the future we can reach him out and also listen to his inshallah readings as well. Number two, I think there was a question that was raised by Dr. Yusuf which I didn't answer, the question of human exceptionalism, right? So basically, this is what I want you to think about, and I think theologians also discuss about it. What is interesting here is, apart from other, aspects of the human, the creation of, the universe, the earth, the living things, what you notice is that the Quran focuses on the creation of mankind with some details. Very interesting. Their creation, the component is being explained. Torah, din, and then the din develop into, the clay, and then clay develop into sounding clay. And then not only that, the Quran mentions that when فَإِذَا سَوَّيْتُهُ وَنَفَخْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِي, when the formation is completed, then now the characterization and the soul ensoulment takes place. So there is a special focus within the Quranic ayat on the creation of man, mankind, which actually makes the human being very special. And as you said, exceptional. other creatures were not explained so much, except you notice that, jinn, the Quran mentions that وَخَلَقَ الْجَانَّ مِن نَارِ, مِن نَارِ السَّمُومِ, or مِن نَارِ جِن nar, right? In Surah Al-Hijr or in Surah Al-Rahman, right? So the substance or the material of jinn has also been mentioned in the Quran, which is like a smokeless, heat, but in that way. Min nari jinn min nar. Jinns were created from a nar, which is smokeless, heat, right? Energizing heat. Of course, within the belief of Muslim theologians, the angels were created from nur, right? That is what we, although I need to check, right? So, but not the angels, not the jinns were being explained in details, the formation, what happened, to the jinns, when it was created, how it took place. But what is interesting is, compared to the jinn and angels, other, creatures, the human being has been explained from turab, from soil, then cleaning lazib now become with water, and then there is, in other words, there is explicit description about how human beings were created and how they were formed. And then not only the Quran mentions the process, but also mentions when I finished this process, I breathed my spirit. It's like, so there is an exceptional way of creating and focusing or focusing on the creation of mankind.
Dr. Hashi,
And this is what,
just want to add that point. There's a good comment by Ustaz Asri Sobri. He's the graduate in ISTEC as well. When he mentioned, he quoted the verses from the Quran, chapter number 3, verse number 59, that we know. Inna mathala Isa inda Allahi ka mathali Adam, khalaqahu min tarab, thumma qala kun fayakun. Which means that the creation of Adam is considered as miracle. If the creation of Isa alayhi salam is considered as miracle, so why can't we accept the miracle creation of Adam? When both are there in that particular verse, right? So in Islamic theology, we have no issue at all to believe in the miracle creation of Adam alayhi salam, which is, I think, a unique connection there. Okay,
but let me add, Dr. Yusuf, if I may add, very interesting, Isa, how Isa was created, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explained in Surah Maryam, yes, because it was gifted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to Mary, right? So there is no much explanation other than لأهب لك غلاما زكيا, right? That is what we know from Isa, right? But the comparison here is very interesting. Although Adam's creation was also exceptional, but that creation has now been explained in details. We know much about it, although it was exceptional way of creating, Adam, Turab, Din, Nafkhur Ruh, and then the task, his job. So this creation is like, mankind is, to me, is very exceptional, if you put it in that way, which is actually the case. We can have more discussions, but I think I'll give chance to the question.
Dr. Hashi, of course, when we talk about the creation of human and creation of living things, there are a lot of issues, even to this to the simple question that how does life originate? This require another webinar. There's a question about abiogenesis. Is it incompatible with Islamic theology? Which I believe we might address this in a separate webinar, because we want to know the idea that the life arose from arise from non-life. It is something like, even can we accept that? Or can we accept about the spontaneous generation, that something from out of nothing comes directly to this particular world? This is a very good question, but I think we reserve this because we have only another 6 minutes for us to conclude. So Brother Nizar, thank you very much for your question. We'll keep that question for the next, maybe IWIN 22, 23, 24.
Okay. With Dr. Gary, the speaker, inshallah. Okay.
Dr. Gary can become the speaker.
Dr. Gary.
Even Dr. Arifin as well. We're going to drag him. It is not going to give him on the side. Okay. Is there anyone wants to give last comment before we conclude? We have another 5 minutes. Anyone wants to? Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Please introduce yourself.
I'm Sufyan from Kuliah Pharmacy. Okay. Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Actually, this is my point of view after listening to all this discussion today. Okay. For me, this topic is nothing to be debated or For me, this is for me, okay? I don't say for others, right? For me. And because it is very clear through our standing on the Tawheed, if we really truly understand the Tawheed that we learn through Tawheed Asy'ariyah and Al-Maturidiyah, then Allah create things through many ways, right? So, for example, I'm not the ustaz, and at the same time, I'm not the genetic people, okay? I'm a chemist, okay, the pure chemist. But this is for myself. Okay, so we don't be too extreme. Okay, we can take, I believe on the theory of evolution based on the science, because we see the mutation happen through the finding of science, right? But we don't say that if you believe on theory of evolution, everything comes from theory of evolution. No, that's why I say don't be extreme. Okay, Allah creates things through many ways. Okay, like you say miracle, Allah create human. It is written in the Quran, it create human in one way, right? So we believe that, then we take it. Actually, it's no miracle for Allah. Miracle only for our eyes, all right? But for Allah, it's nothing is miracle, okay? Then some, maybe other things that which is not written in the Quran, Allah creates in another way. Then it could be come from the theory of evolution, from the evolution, right? So we can believe that. It will not affect our iman, right? But which is clearly told in the Quran, then we believe as it is, right? So because Allah give, so because it is the process, some of the thing that, okay, how Allah create Musa, right? Without father, right? So that is the we call miracle. But the other humans, most of the humans, Allah create through the asbab, right? So that similarly for the evolution could be happen to some creation and not to all. So nothing, no contradiction here. Whether if you believe on evolution, then you become a non-belief on God. No, certain thing you believe, okay? So no contradiction. And then for me, to discuss is, okay, now we study on the mutation, evolution. Okay, we can do study on this thing which is benefit us, right? Because now by understanding the genetic, okay, we can create now even the medicine, okay, the medical field, they go to the genetic, related medicine, all right? So this is the thing that we should focus on, okay? But for those who don't have clear tawheed, they will always confuse, okay? But first thing is, if you have the clear tawheed, nothing is confusing, all is clear. For me, nothing is confusing, all right? Okay, that's my comment. Okay.
Thank you very much, Dr. Brother Sufyan, for your insightful comments. It's wonderful to to be with us, with the speakers, to give your view in terms of this is not extreme and evolution has its limits, and there's no in your view there's no contradictions with Islam. Of course, we can have difference of opinion. That is the purpose of having webinar. We are not here to make everyone agrees to one view. We just deliberate our information. So we have another 1 minute, Dr. Hashi. So just a single 1 minute for concluding remarks. Let us start with Dr. Fitri.
Nizal Nik Muhammad raise hand.
There's no time anymore. It's 7:30. We need to conclude. Yeah, don't worry. We're going to have more. We're going to have more webinars onwards, inshallah. Or we allow only Brother Nizal. Is it okay?
Yep. I think that's fair. Yeah.
Okay. Let us allow Brother Nizal, the last one, inshallah.
Okay, Assalamualaikum.
Salam.
Okay, this is in response to the previous one about we don't have to debate about evolution. So this is from our Muslim perspective. Whereas if you want to look at it from the atheistic perspective, It is about the meaningfulness of design and the randomness, because they don't believe in an argument by design. So they see evolution to proceed through random chance. So to them, this is an argument against God, that we don't have a special place as a human, as a vicegerent of the earth, but we are just an animal, just like monkeys. So there is no need for moral values and ethics and such, or objective morality and such. So this is, to them, their weapon to fight religion.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Brother Nizal. So you are having opposing views, which means that, yeah, we can accept that this is the problems that in your view, when we are believing in this evolution, it can has that particular issues. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end. I cut all, got the signals already. So let us, in 1 minute, sharp 1 minute, the concluding remarks. We start with Dr. Fitri first. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Assalamualaikum. Okay. I want to conclude and also to respond to Dr. Nizal. I think, yes, science, knowledge of science is to explain things, to answer questions. And religion is about believing. There are things that we can explain using science as a tool to explain things in religion, but there are things that cannot be explained. But we try to put into perspective, and we try to, as Dr. Gary said, you don't have to be at different trench to throwing bombs at another, but maybe you can sit down and find the common ground. So to me, if you read a lot of articles about evolution, about mutation, there is no things about they are fighting about God. They didn't talk about God at all. But I think it's just a discussion or argument between atheists and atheists and theists lah, non-believing God and also believers using the evolution. So evolution becomes a tool for fighting each other. But as an evolutionist, they just want to get answers about how things happen. And as a geneticist, there's a lot of things that you can do. As Dr. Sufian said, Dr. Sufian tu kaki pancing. So like for us, we want to use genetics as a tool to improve humanity, how to do medicine and to improve yield in aquaculture and agriculture. That can benefit us all. I think that's all, and I'm very happy for today's discussion. I'm very happy to know Dr. Gary. I think he's the most good. I mean, he can explain more on the combination of science and theology. So I'm thank you for Dr. Razak, my teacher, and thank you for everybody, and Abang Arifin also, Dr. Arifin. So I hope that all of us can gain information. It's not black and white, it's not yes and no, it's just we got extra knowledge and we become more understand about what is about mutation, what is about microevolution and everything. Thank you. Jazakallah. Assalamualaikum.
Yeah, the final minute from our Director of Centris, Dr. Razak.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yusuf and Dr. Fitri and Dr. Anil and everyone. I would like to say, look, I think this is just a beginning of this topic. Inshallah, we will have more, discussions to come, more sessions to come on this topic. If you notice now, even Dr. Sufian, although I appreciate everyone, Dr. Sufian, Dr. Nizal, and everyone, Dr. Sufian said we don't need any discussion on this topic, right? But if you notice, he presented a discussion. So, well, even if you don't like to discuss about this topic, you get yourself discussing about it. So it's a topic that we are all attracted to, whether you are scientists or you are from theology aspect or from philosophy aspect, whether we like it or not, we get ourselves drawn to this topic. So that's why, inshallah, in Centris, we will provide more platform on this topic for our, how do I say, academicians and, related scholars to come in, and discuss this issue. It's like, having this halaqah or this session on this kind of topic, which are the common interests between science and philosophy and religion. Whether we like it or not, whether we discuss it or not, the topics are there, the issues are there. So what we are doing now, we are just joining an ongoing, discussion. So we are doing actually nothing new. It has been discussed, it's discussed now, and it will be discussed. Even if we do not discuss here in IIUM, some others will discuss about it and make their, assumptions. So why not we discuss? We have the, related expertise and scholars. And inshallah, in centuries here, we will help this kind of discussion. And I just want to comment on Dr. Giri, since he has a PhD on this area. It would be good if you can share your email with us. So inshallah, we will be in contact with you, Dr. Giri, because we need an input from different varieties on everyone. And I think in the future, Dr. Sufyan, Dr. Nizar, and everyone will come into the picture, because this is a topic that we are all drawn to, whether we like it or not. And we need everyone's, contributions and comments. So please leave your, email in the chat box. We will contact you, inshallah. And that's it. Thank you very much, Dr. Yusuf.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, all the speakers, all the audience. It's a nice session, a lot of interactive, a lot of comments, a lot of questions. We can agree to disagree. We take this as a part of us for seeking of knowledge, to improve our knowledge, to strengthen our belief. At the end of the day, we're not going to lose the theology. We're not going to lose the faith, but we're going to strengthen our knowledge. So thank you very much for all. I apologize if some of the questions could not be entertained due to time factor. Thank you very much. I return the floor to our MC, Dr. Anil.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I'm happy. Alhamdulillah, we have a very fruitful and progressive talk session. I thank everyone who has been involved. So from the session that we just had, let me sum it up, from my personal views. So we conclude that science deniers may be a problem and atheists also might be a problem, but let's agree that everybody uses tools and technology to some extent. And let me also end with perhaps human, and by the origin of Prophet Adam alayhi salam, is the exception to the whole theory of evolution. So, humans are special beings, and we thank Allah for our presence today. And hopefully that everybody gain barakah and benefits from the session that you just had. Thank you very much. And we end with Tasbih Kafarah and Surah. Thank you very much, everybody. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We'll see you guys some other times, inshallah, very soon. Bye-bye.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ila al-liqa.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.